What is happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Comic Book Weekly. Obviously, we have our little technical difficulties. You'd think like we would all get it together, but we just never do. So
That's okay.
It's just the way we operate. Guys, I'm Mike Spiderslayer from the YouTube channel Comic Book Corner 2.0, where this stream also is being streamed at right now. And then, of course, next to me, I have Cat Comic Uno.
Hello, guys.
And then, of course, we have Brant Fowler from Only Good Comics.
What's up, everybody?
Yep. So apologize that we were not on last week. Brant had, some back, procedure done that he needed the week off.
Back healings.
Yeah. And then my kids were on spring break last week, so they wanted to spend time and stay up late and play board games and stuff. So I was like, I can't say no to the kids. It was like 1 week out of the year, basically 2 weeks out of the year, maybe, where it's just like my daughter doesn't have dance and I was home and she was home. And, those moments are special, So I was like, well, Kat, can we miss out this week? And she's like, sure. Okay. So now we're back. And
we are back.
Sorry, we missed some of the good comics last week, but that's just the way it goes. But we will be
next week. I think it'll be even better though, because like last week had good comics, but you got you never want to miss Ultimate Spider-Man, and that's next week. So that one's gonna be good.
So we'll have some good comics to talk about, I'm sure, somewhere around the line here. So that's where we're gonna start, and then we'll go into our conversation with X-Men, and maybe we'll discuss a little bit of. I don't know if you guys watched X-Men 97. I don't even know.
I haven't had a chance to.
Did you?
I've heard it's very good.
It is good. Yeah, it is very good. So we'll talk about it. But let's get started here. And welcome, guys, for the viewers that are on right now. So thank you so much.
That's a fun name, Pope of Comics.
All right. So let's kick it off here. We'll start with a book that all three of us read, and we'll start off with Wonder Woman issue 7. So I'm very hot and cold with this book, right? Like I want to really like it because I think the artwork usually is very nice on it. And
they had a different artist for this issue though.
Yeah, there was Gillian March, I think it was. And the story is unique. But this issue was complete filler. This takes place between issue 5 and issue 7 or whatever it was. And it was Superman and Wonder Woman going to a mall in space to find a birthday present for Batman. And yes, the artwork was absolutely gorgeous in here, but it was this issue just seems so out of place of everything that was going on, right? From anywhere from, Wonder Woman's dealing with this whole situation. And then, we're just going to forget basically almost everything that's going on. We're going to get manicures. We're going to get pedicures. We're going to stop at Starbucks and we're going to eat. And at the end of the day, we don't really find a present for Batman. We're just going to get a picture that we could have done right here on Earth. It was just a book that I get what you're trying to do with it, but dude, it interrupts such a major story of what's going on right now.
What I think they were trying to do was the Carnival issue again. So they did the Carnival issue for Batman. And I liked the story. I actually had a fun time with it, but I'm the complete opposite. I didn't like the art. I was like, this art does not fit for whatever they're trying to do. I liked it, but I don't think it beats the Carnival episode. That issue was so good. But I think that's what they were trying to do. What were you going to say, Brent?
No, I was waiting for you to finish. That's fine. No, I agree. Kind of with both of you in a way. I liked the art. I thought it was fine. The story I had fun with, but I agree with you, Mike, that the placement of the story in the whole arc was ridiculous.
Right.
It made no sense for where everything that was going on. and then they barely even talk about it or address it because she doesn't want to talk about it through the whole episode. So it felt weird. It felt like such an interruption. It's like, oh, in the middle of everything that's going on right now, you're going to take a trip to space to find a president. It felt a little odd to me, but yeah.
People are saying they enjoyed it. It's not that I dislike the story. I think it's what it is I think it's a cute story of these two having a relationship, doing something besides saving the world, right? But like you just said, Brant, it's where the story takes place is kind of off for me. It just seems completely out of left field. When you got this issue in your hands, it's like, were you really expecting that? You know what I'm saying? So I don't know, but and then you're going to get back into the whole seriousness of everything that's going on in the next issue.
Right. Yeah. If there had been a clear break in the story where, it was like there was a stalemate or something and it made sense to have kind of an interlude here, that would make more sense to me. But it was a fine issue.
So, okay. So, yeah, we'll see where Wonder Woman goes next time. All right, so now let's talk about another book we all read, and that's Web of Spider-Man issue 1. So this book was like an $8 comic book. It was a glorified preview of just everything of what's to come with, all the Spider characters. And a lot of this stuff, though, in this book, it's stuff that we already knew.
It was so unexciting.
New. Yeah. And even in Amazing Spider-Man stuff, they showed like 2 pages of a story, and it's like, okay, great. This almost reminded me of the distillery thing. Some were longer than others, but this was stuff that we already knew. And you did get Kane, which we haven't seen him in a while, so it's cool to see that. But there was nothing there where at the end of the day it was like, dude, I can't wait for this Spider-Man story to come out. This looks freaking fantastic. In fact, it just made me like kind of upset, going, I'm a little bit worried, right?
Yeah, no, it made me less excited for Spider-Man. Because the only thing I was interested in was Kane, but that's just because I like his character. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know. Like you said, I didn't know that was going to happen. But it looks like he's going to be connected to Ben Reilly, which I don't like. And there's no story here. Even like you have the Spider-Gwen stuff that was so kind of generic. It just, I don't know. I wanted to be excited about something, and I wasn't with this one.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was excited. I mean, some of the stories were fine and enjoyable, but like you both said, it was basically what we've gotten. There was no new information. Some of the art looked nice. Some of it did not. Not naming names, but we all know. So it just, what I was looking for in this was, this is teasing stories going into next year.
Excitement.
And I was looking for like some big, like unveiling, something to really get me, like you said, excited and amped up and ready for that story to get here. And it's like, I didn't really get that here. I just got, okay, these are already the stories that are going on. We already know this. So yeah.
The Spider-Man 2099 story was everything that you saw in there was already talked about in the Edge of Spider-Verse issue. The only thing that they reveal is the Green Goblin, which was Gwen Stacy, which was real no surprise to me. Like, I kind of figured it was going to be her. But
that is a Spider-Man 2099 story. It's such a side story,
Yeah, and the thing
the
is,
impact's
though,
not there. Yeah,
it was like, hey, Spider-Man 2099 gets captured. And she could have killed him there. She doesn't kill him. And then he escapes. And then he gets captured again. It's just so dumb. It was so weird, that story. I don't know, man. I don't know where they're going to really go with that. So I guess time will tell.
Yeah. I enjoyed it for what it was, but it just didn't get me excited. That's my main problem with it.
You kind of like what you want from Spider-Man or Spider-Man stories is like kind of like when you knew Transformers was coming, right? And you're like, oh my God, I need to see what this is. I need to be excited about this. And then you get that book in your hands and you're just like, oh, okay. It's not horrible, right? It's not, but it's not exciting you like maybe like it should, you know. So
Yeah.
so maybe, you know, time will tell. We'll see how these stories go. All right, so now let's talk about a book that Brant and I read, and this is Cobra Commander. This is issue, what are we on? 3 here. So very interesting story, as I thought we would learn more about the Energon in this book, but it became more of like a torture book, you know, about the Dreadnoks trying to torture Cobra Commander, get in his helmet, find out who he's at. You got to love the manipulation that Cobra Commander had on all the Dreadnoks, trying to get them to go against each other, which I thought was really cool. And then we find out who the bodyguard is. And Brant, you were right. You said it last time when we talked about it. Nemesis Enforcer. It was so cool to see him in that book. It was a great issue. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah. This was such a good issue, and seeing like that reveal, it was like, oh man, that made me feel so good, because I, like you said, I did call it, and I'm sure a lot of people did, but it just, man, that was those are characters that were never touched on in the comics, really. So it was fun to see that element come into play throughout the series. But yeah, the Dreadnought stuff was fantastic. Cobra Commander, this version of Cobra Commander is a lot more sly and cunning than previous versions have been. He's smarter, and I like that. I like that he's like a worthy villain and a worthy leader, instead of just like this cowardly thing that we get in the cartoons and stuff. So it was a good issue. I enjoyed it.
Cool. Glad you liked it. Couching and Slouching with C Busy says, what is your guys' dream creative team for Spider-Man?
I've kind of given up on the dream creative team of Spider-Man. I don't have one. I really don't. I just want a good
I would say that if I had somebody, and because they wrote Black Cat right, I would say Jed MacKay. I would say Jed MacKay. And the artwork, I would like to see Greg Capullo do the artwork on a regular basis on it. I think that could be kind of cool. But he's going to be doing Wolverine, so I would like to see that.
See, I think Jed would have been a good answer, and obviously, he wrote Black Cat really well. But Avengers, you know, that's a flagship book that just hasn't been doing it, you know. And I'm afraid, I think it really shows that writers are allowed to do stuff in these like little side stories, but when it comes to flagships, it's the same thing over and over again.
My biggest thing with Avengers, though, is that he's never written a really big book where it's like a huge team. And when I only did not read the last issue, and it always seems, and we talked about this before, but it always seems that when he's writing the team, they're always in pairs doing something else, and they're never actually together. And I think he struggles with a team book, trying to get them to actually work together.
Yeah, you see that in Moon Knight as well, because there's several characters in that book. They've kind of formed a team, a family and stuff, and they are usually like separated out, one or two over here doing something. And it's the same thing as Avengers, so maybe that is true. I think with Spider-Man, I think Black Cat showed us that he really gets those characters and those voices, and the tone's a little bit different than you get in like an Avengers book. So I think he might do a really good job with Spider-Man. I could be wrong though,
right?
But he'd be my choice right now, and maybe somebody like David Marquez on the art.
Well, that's a good one too. Yeah, Dave Marquez is a good artist. Yeah. So it's cool. All right, awesome. So with that being said, we're going to jump into our number 5 comic book of the week. And Kat, what was your number 5 this week?
Mine was Wonder Woman. We already talked about it.
Okay, Brant.
I'm going to go with Captain Marvel, number 6. This involved, does anybody else read this book right now?
No.
Am I the only one? Okay.
Yeah.
It's the same arc that's been going on since issue 1.
Who writes it?
God, who does write it? I've completely
lost. I'll look it up while you go as you do.
I forgot who writes it. Anyway, this one involved like the entire Marvel family. So you had Wiccan and Hulkling, and L'Oreal was in this issue, And so adding all those characters in that I enjoy made
Alyssa
it a more
Wong.
enjoyable issue. Who is it?
Alyssa Wong.
Alyssa Wong. Okay. So up until this issue, it's been just kind of mediocre, but this issue I just really like because of all those characters involved in the story. So anytime I get to see those characters, because we don't get to see L'Oreal and Hulkling and Wiccan all that much. So they made it more fun because they all kind of came together to fight this threat, which is this, I forget the name of it's some weird name. God, I cannot think of it for the life of me. But they have it's like this dark presence that has created like these omen characters that they've been cultivating for years to bring them kind of like sleeper agents into the fray. And they've like brought people back to life, like Jenna Spell and stuff to attack the whole Marvel family to get the mega bands. So it was, but yeah, them all coming together was what I enjoyed.
Cool. All right. And then my number 5 this week was Spawn issue 351. So we're dealing with the Spawn characters not having powers. That's basically what it is. And it's not only the Spawn characters not having powers, but it's all the characters that are in this world. So like there's angels in this world as well, and they don't have wings, they can't fly. And so the vampires are aware of what's going on. They're not affected by this. So of course now the vampires want to take over everything, destroy Spawn, things like that. Get to see some cool fighting, good artwork, of course, by Brett Booth, who now does the artwork in this one. And it's just good, man. I like it. So I'm going to continue reading it.
Nice.
All right, cool. So now we're going to move on to Superman issue 12. So this was the whole thing with the kryptonite gas affecting Metropolis. And we have Superman defeating Farm and Lex Luthor and the grandmother and all that stuff. It kind of wraps all that stuff up, right? That's what happened in this comic. So this one was all right. I mean, it is what it is. It just wrapped up a story, and you know, I was like, okay, this is fine. Nothing fantastic here.
I agree. It was just an okay issue. I think it focused a little bit too much on the Lex side of things, which is just fine. But yeah, I think you put it best. There's nothing too bad, but nothing too great in this one.
The thing I did like was the role reversal where Superman had to be the smart one and Lex had to be the power. I like that switching of the dynamic, but other than that, yeah, it was just, I mean, it was decent. So
we got Styles So Serious. What is it with vampires in comics lately? For the Blood Hunt thing, I think it's just because the Blade movie was coming out and now it's not. That's the answer for that.
Yeah, and last year they had DC versus vampires, so they had that going on, which was actually a really good story.
If I'm being honest, it's just an easy sell though, because people already like vampires. It's kind of like a built-in fan base, so it's just it's an easy sell for them. It's
like vampires will never go away; they always will be around. So it's almost like zombies in a way, you know. But vampires, you know, have maybe obviously more of a personality, and you can make anything a vampire if you want to. So why not? All right. So let's see. Let's move on to Vengeance of Moon Knight, Volume 2, Issue 3. This was one of the books where I read like 25 books this week. And when I got through this book, I was almost like, I am exhausted. I don't even remember what I read. So you're going to have to recap me on this one, Brent.
There wasn't much that happened. Honestly, it was Soldier in therapy, and he was talking about.
Well, that's right.
He was feeling guilty about he should have been the one to die instead of Moon Knight, and being mad that there's another Moon Knight character out there, and that was really most of the issue was him talking about his guilt, and then you had a couple of interactions with people where they were claiming Moon Knight was doing this to them or that to them, and him saying no, it's not Moon Knight, and then They interrogate a vampire and said, you got to give us the location of this Moon Knight so we can, avenge Moon Knight. That was basically
it. Was very repetitive. And it was a lot of like situations that happened in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like this book has kind of lost the thread a little bit. So
Yeah, I agree. I thought the first issue was good. I thought the second issue with Tigro was interesting, and then
yeah,
now it's getting, like you said, it's starting to get repetitive, and not much is actually going on.
yeah.
We do have a question from Pope of Comics. Speaking of Spawn, are you going to get the Rat City? So this is more of a question for Mike, who's been following the Spawn
So
stuff.
it's so funny. Like, I didn't even know that there was this it's a comic book. It's called Rat City. And I didn't even know what it was. And I was doing one of my solicitation videos, and I'm like, what is Rat City? I have no idea. And in my brain, I was thinking, why does this character look like Spawn? And so I had one of my friends in a comic community named Adam commented and said, I can't believe you don't realize what this is, but it's like a Spawn in the future. So that's
Oh, really?
yeah. And so I will be checking that out. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that's what it is. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it.
I mean,
They probably should have picked a different name. Like then that's
I had no idea there was a connection there.
Yeah, yep. So yeah. Okay. So we talked about Vengeance of Moon Knight. We talked about Superman. So let's move on to our number 4. And I'll start with you, Brent.
Invincible Iron Man, number 16. This was
mine too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So this is Tony kind of going all out. He's got the Sentinel Buster, and he's like lured all the Sentinels into the desert. So the rest of the everybody else can kind of hit them where they don't expect it. Is what happened, right? This is one of the first books I read, so I'm kind of struggling on
kind of mine too.
That happened. Yeah. I do remember that part though. I remember him being in the desert and his power going out, and he's like giving everything he's got, and he's fighting Fei Long. And I think it ended with him. We don't know if who won. Like Fei Long had him at his right.
He's like inside the armor.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
and all the systems are down. Yeah,
right, correct. But what this is like that typical, almost old school Iron Man issue where it's just robots fighting other robots. You're getting to see what that Mark 72 can do. And he's describing the whole battle through the narration in the comic book. Almost all the pages in here are like pinup pages. So it really showcases the artwork in there. I really liked it. I thought it was a lot of fun. It was a blast. And it was a book that I was really looking forward to reading this week. And it definitely delivered.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Kat, what was your number 4?
Mine was Nightwing issue 112. It
kind of almost made it. It almost made it for me.
Mostly the art, I mean, obviously is always really good, and it did its job. It's Nightwing talking about his past and kind of relating this new case with this boy with his own childhood. It does not reinvent the wheel by any means, but I think it's, a well-written character story that's a solid kind of filler issue as we get to the end of the series or of this run.
Yeah, I continued off of the last issue, which I thought the last issue was it. I didn't realize that it was continuing in this. There's in this one.
Oh, you mean of this? That's it for the arc. There's like 2 more issues I think for Tom Taylor and the creative team.
Yeah, but it was like this particular story was 2 issues. Like I thought the last issue was like, oh, it's just this kid with his uncle that's leaving, and that's how it ended. And then it actually continued. And so I was like, oh, wow, I didn't think they would do a second part with this. But it was kind of sad just seeing what this uncle did to, his nephew and how he, killed his mom and his dad and all this other things just for some money, and it was a very interesting story, but does this really progress anything with the Nightwing character? Not really.
Right.
No.
And that's what kept it out of my top 5. It's my number 6, but I like the story, and I like the Batman talking about Nightwing, how he connected to that boy and how he couldn't let that go and that kind of thing, and yeah, I didn't expect there to be a second part of that story either. I thought it was just going to be one of those things that just kind of faded away. But I appreciate they put a pin on it, and yeah, it was a decent issue. But like you said, with most Nightwing issues, it didn't get us anywhere with the story that that they've been trying to tell since day one with this. So
Yeah, absolutely. Tevia sits there and says, "How do you guys feel about Nightwing book coming to an end this year?"
I mean, I think it told the stories it needed to do.
Didn't
And
even tell
Yeah.
a real story. Like, I don't know.
I think there's pieces that I enjoyed. Like, obviously the beginning
Of
was
course.
good. I think there's some good character work, Barbara and Nightwing coming together. Overall story, no, I don't think Nightwing changed. I mean, I guess if I had to really search, I think the things he changed was, again, him and Barbara being together, getting some closure of the Rick story, because we did, honestly, weirdly enough, that filler issue with the girlfriend was probably the most progression we've seen from Dick Grayson's character.
yeah, we got Bitewing. I mean, that's
We
something.
did.
Oh,
That
yeah.
was a very forgettable character.
Would who would you like to see write this book?
Who does DC have left? Because so many of them have went to other things. You have Jason Aaron, who's doing, did the Action Comic stuff. Obviously, everyone would say Mark Waid, but I think they've been. Well, honestly, he's not writing Shazam anymore, and I feel like World's Finest is not going to be there forever. I feel like Mark Waid would be interesting.
Jeremy Adams.
I want Jeremy Adams on everything too.
Well,
I mean, he's
you know,
definitely capable of writing more than one flipping book. So
Yeah.
Well,
why
he's
not?
writing Flash too. He writes.
Yeah, but
Jake
that's not a
Garrick and-
forever thing. That's a
Right.
No, I
miniseries.
think that's over.
Yeah.
Well, it's gonna be. His writing
It's
is
soon,
over. I would
yeah.
say. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I love him right
That's-
Nightwing.
yeah, that's the one I can think of that's there right now. I mean, the only other big one is Joshua Williamson, but he writes a lot. Right.
Too
Yeah,
much,
he
yeah.
does write a lot, man.
Yeah.
I don't. Jeez.
Jason Aaron's gone. I know he's writing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but I didn't think he left DC.
Yeah, I have
No.
no idea.
I don't know.
I have no
but,
idea.
yeah.
Okay, so let's move. So we all did our number 4, right?
I do want to mention Tevye says he's
Oh,
writing
yeah.
Green Lantern, which is fantastic. That was one of my favorite books
Adams.
last week. And
Oh
it's just
yeah, that was another one that was really good. Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
every
was
issue,
good.
no matter what's going on in the book, it's just always so action packed. If you're talking about progressing story, that book progresses story so freaking well. And honestly, and I always say this, and I mean this as the highest compliment. It reminds me a lot of Jeff Johns' Green Lantern. If I never read Jeff Johns' Green Lantern, and you put these two books side to side, I wouldn't even know he didn't write it.
I mean, that issue was really cool. I did not expect a Green Lantern battery to be down
On
there,
Earth.
And what a cool way to sit there and make the Green Lantern sector 2814 wind up them being the guardians of everything.
And will there be another Green Lantern? Because there's another ring now. So that's interesting as well. Are they going to have another lantern? Who would that be?
How many were there? I don't remember. Was there it looked like there was quite a few of them, But I mean, you had, obviously you're going to have JoJo Mullins. You're going to have Guy Gardner, Kyle Rayner, Jessica Cruz, Hal
John
Jordan.
Yeah.
There's 5 right
Simon
there.
Baz.
Simon Baz.
Yeah.
Yep. That's 6. So I don't know, man, but it'll be interesting to see. There's hopefully he's on this book for a long time. I can tell you though, I saw the solicitations for January.
Mm-hmm.
And it looked like the main cover had Hal.
I saw.
Kissing, and she was a Star Sapphire.
I'm excited. You knew they were building towards that. So.
I don't know if it's the real deal or if it's just a cover, but that would be cool.
I would love that. Again, I think they've been building towards it already. So it's just a great book. So recommend it. There's some people that are saying, "Oh, you should pick up Green." I haven't read it. Go read it. It's genuinely the best superhero book on stands. I don't think there's a competition. I mean, maybe Ultimate Spider-Man, but I feel like it's such a different thing. I feel like
Like,
Ultimate Spider-Man's a great Spider-Man book, but it's
Yeah.
not the best superhero book because it is so much about Peter. I genuinely think Green Lantern is the best superhero book.
All right. So let's see. So we all did our number 4, right? We talked about Nightwing. And now we're gonna talk about Kill Your Darlings, which unfortunately my shop doesn't get it in. So it's like one of those books where I'm gonna have to catch up. I think I did not read this issue. So what happened?
In this issue, it's really putting the pieces together. It's the last issue revealed a lot about who that old lady is. So it was like the exposition about what this world is. And this issue, the main characters find out about it. That's pretty much all. It is a very point A to point B issue. If you're like, okay, this is how they fight. But I liked it. I thought it was solid. I don't think it's as strong as some of the previous ones because you have to have so much exposition. But it puts the pieces together to be like, all right, next issue is our last issue.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of movement with this one. I agree. This might be my least favorite issue of the entire run, honestly. And not to say it was a bad issue.
Yeah, but again, like it's been such a great series.
Right. Yeah, it's been a fantastic series, but it was, like you said, just the main characters finding out and, kind of setting up for that final act, basically, what it was.
This is actually a really good question. Do you think 10 years from now we'll be nostalgic for the age of Krakoa? Yeah, for sure. Because I look at like something like Superior Spider-Man that we all kind of hated in the moment because it was so long. But then you're like, wait, that actually did something different. That's a lot of fun. And I think we'll feel the same way about Krakoa. But then we'll have to remind ourselves it happened for so long.
I don't think the whole run will be nostalgic. I think people will remember Hawks and Pox. I think that's what they'll remember because that's what kicked off the Krakoan age. A lot of people will know the Krakoan age because of how shitty it was overall. Because there's so many people that just don't like it. There's a lot of people out there.
Yeah, I don't think you could forget about the impact it had to the mutants because it was like they couldn't die and they were all in one place and all that stuff and they were basically ruling everything. So in that regard, I think it's going to be very memorable.
Right.
But I don't think it's going to be like this. Like one of the cornerstone moments.
Right. Like when you look at like Claremont's run. Like there are so many stories there,
right?
That because they fleshed them out.
You can, that you can remember throughout the years, right? And as long as the Krakoan age has been around, it's like a lot of people will always remember those first 2 main books, and then you'll remember what was. See, I don't even remember already. Like what was the big event that they had, the tournament or whatever that was.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember the name of it. That's
see, shows you how good it was, right? So that's what I'm talking about. Like it's just very forgettable. Like know of the age, but you don't remember the stories, and that's unfortunate because those stories should be memorable in that age. Maybe you'll remember like the children of the vault,
10 of Swords, X of Swords, whatever you want.
Yeah.
I don't think this is going to be like Days of Future Past or
Phoenix
Age
Saga.
of Apocalypse or Phoenix Saga. Any of those, it's not going to be in that level.
The teams the 2 new teams that formed, in the 90s, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
We do have 2 more questions. So Jeffrey asks, why did Hickman leave X-Men so early? Was he asked to leave to plan Ultimate Reboot? No. So this is definitely like no knowledge, but he left because of Substack. Like
Substack,
it was promised it was going to be a lot bigger than it was. And, the people who went on Substack got paid to be there. And it didn't work out as well as one would hope because it's hard to have, I think Substack went the wrong direction. I think it was great they did comics, but the biggest mistake was to go for the direct market. They really should have went for people who already were online, like maybe WEBTOON or like a big web comic, because then it would have been easier to convert those people who were used to Patreon and used to that format. But because they got people from the direct market, those people were their fans are so used to reading at a comic book store that it just didn't convert well.
Yeah.
So that was the problem there. And the other questions from Tevia, not this one, but I guess it's together. Will we remember Zeb Wells' run on Spider-Man? I think the last one I personally would remember is Nick Spencer, just because you could tell how hard he was trying to tell a story that he wanted to tell. And every turn, it just went wrong. Because you could just, like, there's little, like, pockets of, like, oh, that was really good. But Zeb Wells, there was one good arc, and it was a filler arc, you know? So I think it's going to be pretty forgettable.
I mean, I think we might, you know, when prompted, remember Gang more. But other than that, yeah, I don't feel it was too memorable of a run.
I definitely don't think I'm going to remember Gang more.
I think
well, I said when
remember
prompted, you know?
because of how poor it unfortunately is. Like, you'll be like, oh, I remember Zeb Wells because of
Wreck-Rap. That's what they'll think of.
But the one before that was also pretty poor, and that was just a mishmash of writers. And even Nick Spencer was kind of poor, you know?
Right.
And
I mean, for me, I feel like the last decent writer was when Dan Slott was there, because he wrote the character for a long time, like 10 years. So, like, that's a long time. He had an extensive run on there. And he did Superior Spider-Man, and he did not all of it was perfect. We talked about that before, obviously, right? But it's like, when you look at what he did now, comparatively speaking to who's writing it, it's to me, it's better, you know.
I wanted to comment on that.
That's a good point. No.
But I don't think people will remember that because she was only dead for like a week. I don't think people even remember she died.
I wouldn't remember if I didn't, look at it closely. And going back to the Dan Slott comment, I agree and disagree. I think there's moments when I remember reading it, I remember there were a lot of issues where I was like, wow, this is really rushed, or this feels really crowded. But then, yes, I also agree that there's stuff that I really love from that run. He's the one who did Renew Your Vows. I loved, obviously, Spider Island. Superior Spider-Man I didn't like, but I liked that he did something different. I love, obviously, the Flash Thompson death. Like, there's some really good moments, but there's a lot of moments I remember thinking, man, I want this to move forward.
Sure. But I think that's anybody that writes a book that long, you're going to have those ups and downs like that. Especially but I think there were more, I think there were more memorable moments in that run than any in recent memory.
And he used the characters. Like, I felt like he did use the characters, you know?
That's true.
He
maybe not the way we would have liked, but
Right. He used Norman. He did use Mary Jane. He used Ben Reilly. Tried. You know, Tevia mentioned, like, the clones conspiracy. I get it, but that was okay. That was not a horrible story, you know.
It wasn't as bad as Gang War. I remember in the moment making it as like, wow, this is not great. But things did happen in it. Gang War, nothing happened. It's just kind of span its wheels.
Right.
Tevia, go on.
No, and I was going to say, like, you had a decent artist. You had a Roberto Ramos on the artwork, and you know, you had Spider-Man as he was like, he had Horizon Labs where he worked at, so he was able to change into Spider-Man and come up with different tech, like, so that was kind of cool, you know.
He did a lot of different things with Spider-Man. I completely agree, and just to finalize my thoughts on that, one of the major complaints we've had in the past long while is that a lot of writers don't use his supporting cast, and Dan Slott, like you said, Mike, did do that. So
even if they couldn't have Mary Jane and Peter together, they're like, you know what? Let her be with a fireman. And let her be there. There's another comment from Tevia asking about Substack. Did it crash and burn? I think the movement did, if I'm being honest, but I think the idea of Substack has grown. Like, you know, James Tynion doing his thing happened because of Substack. Scott Snyder doing his thing happened. Ghost Machine happened because of Substack. Distillery. I think the idea of independent comics has changed a lot. And also the idea of a newsletter. Like, there's some creators that have left Substack, and then there's other creators who just don't use Substack for what it was for, like making new comics. They're now using it just to connect with their fans through newsletters, which has become more important.
I think Scott Snyder in particular, because he does his writing classes and stuff through it. I think he utilizes it the best way, but I think one of the main problems was to kind of add on to what you were saying earlier, Kat. A lot of people just realized that these books were going to come out physically eventually through Image or Dark Horse or whatever. And a lot of those traditional fans just waited for them to come out in print anyway. But yeah, I think it's not dead. A lot of people use Substack. But yeah, it's definitely changed.
I know it's changed our career as indie creators. Like I use newsletter all the time, and I always think about like how if Kickstarter blew up one day and it never existed. A lot of people would be like, well, I have no assets. I always use Kickstarter. But if you build your newsletter and you build your fan base, then you have your newsletter at least. And you have people there. You have a community of people.
Yeah, I don't think I would be as successful on Kickstarter as I was if I didn't have the newsletter that I've had for a few years. At one point I had like 10,000 people on it. I don't have that many now because you call it every once in a while when nobody's opening, but I still have a significant amount of people on mine. And that's where a lot of my support comes from. So
the name changes. Substack never did anyone any good. Just another $10 membership. You can use Substack for free. I think that's a big thing to know, is that there's options and you get a lot of stuff for free. I agree. I wouldn't pay $10 for it, but there are other aspects you could use.
I mean, if you're a upcoming writer and you want to learn from somebody like Scott Snyder, you might be willing to pay for that. Again, I think he utilizes the best, but that's me.
Or you just want to know what's coming up with your favorite writer. Like it's really comic journalism has changed a lot now, where you really can't get news as often as they used to. Be like, oh, did a book end? I don't actually know, because usually that would have been on like this site, and that site doesn't exist anymore. I think it's a really good way to find out what your favorite creator is up to. So if you like that side of comics, go check it out.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's continue on here with the comic talk. So we're going to move on to number 3 first before we get into Titans. So, Kat, what was your number 3?
Mine was Kill Your Darlings. We already talked about it.
Mine too, actually.
Mine was Untold Destiny of the Foot Clan Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, issue 1. So
cool.
That was a really good book. Again, it's just telling you a story about Shredder's granddaughter, and it's a story that takes place in the future. She's got Bebop, Rocksteady with her, some of the other people, and Casey Jones is with her too, which I'm kind of confused about there, why he is with her. And they come across another clan that kind of kicks her ass, and I don't know, man. I like this better than the Last Ronin book that I just read. This was really good. The artwork was really good as well. And I'll be checking out issue 2. This was fun.
Is this one in continuity, like with the current TMNT book? Or like where does this take place? Because if it is, I can explain about Casey, I think, if I remember correctly.
I don't know, because I don't read that book. It just says the Untold Destiny of the Foot Clan.
Okay.
Well, I think it's something that takes place in the future.
Oh, okay. Then I don't know. At one point, Casey was like undercover with the Foot Clan or something, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I've read it. I'm like way behind. But I think at one point he was against them for some reason.
Gotcha.
I don't remember why. But yeah.
But no, this was good. Like, I like this way better than the whole Last Ronin story. I thought it was fun. So yeah, and something very bad happens to Shredder's granddaughter in this. So I was like, oh, damn. But good stuff. All right, so let's move on now to Titans issue 9. So it's kind of more the same, I guess. Like, you get Beast Boy, who's like, oh, they don't like me because of, they're scared of me. And then you got Raven, who's kind of manipulating people to, I don't know, so she can do whatever it is she's doing. So, it was an all right story. It wasn't the best. I don't want this book to drop off because it was so good for the event, and I feel like it might drag on for a little bit.
I actually like this issue because I thought it progressed the story well. I like that we got a little bit more from Gar. I like that we got to see Raven turn on Donna. I thought that was really interesting. The art's really good. I actually thought this was pretty solid.
Yeah, I agree with you, Kat. I really enjoyed this, and it could just be that, you know, before Beast World it didn't
So
suck,
slow.
but it just wasn't great. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think these
It didn't
past
have a
couple issues
direction before Beast World. This actually has a
It's-
direction.
It does have a direction. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
exactly. And I like this whole thing, the Titans versus Amanda Waller, and how she's kind of trying to manipulate them and bring them down, and this whole side story with Raven and Beast Boy and all this stuff. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed Gart kind of, you know, really dealing with this trauma of everything he's done. So
See,
yeah,
what
I like it. Yeah.
What I'm
Go ahead.
afraid of is, so Tom Taylor's writing this, right? So I'm afraid of how long is he going to drag this out for?
Definitely could.
That's what I'm worried about. So like he's gonna go to where did Raven last leave off? Which character was she talking to?
Donna.
Was it Donna?
Yeah.
So, and then I have a feeling she's just gonna kind of make her way around the team, and I don't know. I have this feeling that it's gonna be. I didn't think this was bad. Don't get me wrong. I just felt like I see it coming because of just like the way Tom Taylor writes his books. Sometimes, you know, like he tends to drag things along. Like for perfect example, Nightwing, right? So you know, this could be a book that, for a while, just nothing really happens. So I don't know. We'll see. But that's just me, though.
Yeah. No, I get that. I get that concern.
So it's more of like I don't know, like I'm preparing myself more than really the current issue of it wasn't bad. So
yeah.
We do have 2 questions. Parker Lux says, "Did you guys pick up Images The Colonized Zombies versus Aliens for $10?" I didn't.
I did not.
Henry K, is storytelling aspect of comic books actually improving in 2024? I always say this, but I think it just depends where you're looking at. Like, I always hate saying, "Oh, Marvel sucks" or "DC sucks," because there's good Marvel books and there's good DC books. We were just talking about Green Lantern being amazing. I love Green Lantern. And then there's other books that aren't amazing. You know, there's so many great indie books. So I like that there's more opportunity to read different things. If you don't like Marvel and DC, there's other opportunity to read other types of comics. So I think a lot of people look at comics as just like this one, like hero. If Spider-Man's bad, everything's bad. Or if Marvel's bad, everything's bad. Or even if the direct market's bad, everything's bad. But I don't think we should look at comics that way. I think comics is so much bigger than that.
you know, what I want to say is that I feel that there are more really good books than there were last year. Like really, really good books.
I can agree to that.
I feel like there's always going to be, there will never be as many great books as there are not as good books, right?
Well, there's also a lot of books.
There's so many comics.
Yeah, that's
and not all of them are going to be great.
Or your taste.
Right, exactly.
right. Yeah.
So, you know, trying to find the I guess the diamond in the rough is the thing that, you know, that you're looking for. And I feel like there's been more of those this year. You know, when you look at, again, this is me, but when you look at Ultimate Spider-Man, when you look at the Energon universe, right? When you look at some of these other indies out there, you look at Kickstarter projects, like Kat said, looking at a whole, you know, I think there's some really, really good stuff out there. There really is. You know, unfortunately, there is a lot, and we can't all afford it, so we can't all read it all either, you know? So you got to.
Even if it was all free, I feel like it'd be impossible. Because again, you could go to WEBTOON and everything's free, but it's impossible to read every single WEBTOON. So it's just like it's money and
how much can you consume?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's just you got to also pick and choose. But yeah, I think a good example is like Kill Your Darlings. Like that's just an amazing book. But then also you look at last year and you look at Specs. Like Specs was an amazing book. We love Specs. So it's just like every year's got a different book, you know.
There was never
Yeah.
a like no one thought that book was going to be good, and then I read it and I said, "Kat, you got to read this," and she loved it, and then Brant loved it. Did you read it, Brant? You did, right?
Yeah, I read it.
Yeah. And
I had other people read it too. Like I had Phil, who my business partner, read it, and he doesn't read books on a weekly basis. And then I had his brother read it, who doesn't read comics that often on a weekly basis. So it's just like, I also was a book that was really easy to like give to other people that aren't Wednesday warriors. And I love books like that where you can just like get anyone into it. And I think Kill Your Darlings is a good example of that too.
I agree with that. Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to number 2. So, speaking of a good comic book, and I know a lot of people will agree with me.
I know which one you're going to say, and I want to pick this up on trade so bad.
Beneath the
I just
trees
feel like I
where
missed
nobody
it.
sees.
Yeah.
I'm telling you guys,
same.
do whatever it is that you can to find this book.
Because it's hard. The issue ones aren't, around.
Yeah.
It is so freaking good. This issue was phenomenal. I'm not going to spoil it. I'm not going to say anything, but it's so freaking good. The main character in this book is awesome. And she literally, like, it's like karma. It's like what comes around goes around here. And you're just like, oh, damn, man. So good. Absolutely must read this. It's one of those books that's up there with me, like with like Transformers and Ultimate Spider-Man. As an independent comic book, it's awesome. So good.
We do have a super chat. Thanks for the thoughtful responses. Of course. Thank you for the good question.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Yeah.
So, Brant, what was yours?
Titans. So we already talked
Mine
about that.
too. We're
Nice.
2 for 2 now.
Yeah.
I don't
it won't
think
be with
our-
number 1. I
Yeah,
guarantee.
I don't think our number one's on me.
All right. And then we have next is Lilo and Stitch. So you guys read it.
I like this issue a lot. I think what I liked a lot about this is that it did its job for what the job is, right? Is it the best book to ever read in life? No. But if you like Lilo and Stitch, this is a really good Lilo and Stitch book because I think Lilo and Stitch has the opportunity to do a little more because it had a television show. So it kind of had already a lot of stories past the movie. But I like that there's actual character development in this book. These type of Disney all ages books tend not to have that. So I like that there's an actual story, and it's a good all ages book if you like this franchise.
Yeah, and this was a quick read, but it did feel like an episode of a cartoon. It was but at the same time there was like some emotional stuff with him having to leave to protect his family, from all that. And I thought that was kind of fun. The whole like getting mistaken for a stuffed animal. It was really cute and really fun. Like you said, if you like Lilo and Stitch, this is definitely one to read.
Very cool. All right. So I guess with that, we'll just go on to our number 1.
Did we skip Spider-Woman?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, I think we did.
Okay.
Yes, we did. Okay, so Spider-Woman. She teams up with Spider-Boy in this issue. And, who did she fight? Who did they fight? Oh, Speedball. That's what it was. They fought Speedball in this issue, and they were fighting drones and stuff like that, right? I think if that's what it was. And it was a cool little team up type of issue. And what was it called? I felt like Bailey was kind of like going to be like the child for Spider-Woman. And I was kind of thinking, I was like, wait a minute, what if Bailey was actually like somehow Jessica's kid? I don't know. I was just thinking of all those different little scenarios, but it was just them teaming up with each other, having a good, having a fun time. And, she's obviously dealing with the loss of Jerry. And it looks like now she's going to be going to, Los Angeles? I think there's going to be a West Coast Avengers book. And
I hope there's something. Because I feel like this book has been spinning its wheels. And this issue is a good example of that, where you just finish your Gang War stuff. You really should like go into the premise, which I know is the Sun stuff, but there's just something about it that just doesn't hook me. And I want to be hooked.
I think it's getting there. It's transitioning over.
I'm definitely gonna give it more issues just because I do like this character. And again, Gang War, you can't say, "Oh, I hate a book or love a book" if it's connected to an event. And this is a crossover of another book, so it's like, oh, it's hard to say if this is good or bad. But at the same time, how long are you gonna not get into the story? So I don't know. It's just a book I want to like more than I do.
Yeah, I did like though that they did at least address that thread where Bailey actually remembered her son and that kind of thing, and he was also a forgotten character, so you had that connection. So at least there was it made sense for him to be there and furthered the narrative of her story instead of just like, oh, let's just throw these two together because we're trying to get this character popular or whatever.
Right.
So, but yeah, I agree with everything else though.
But I would, if she is going to the West Coast, it's very possible you could see that. And I would like
Who's
to
left
see
on the West Coast?
Well, nobody. So I want to see who they would snag together there. But obviously, that's where the book is going. It's getting away from this area, and it's focusing on her new life over there. So
yeah,
right.
We'll see. All right. So now we'll get to our number one. So, Bran, I think yours is Cobra Commander.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That was mine too.
Nice.
So there's that. So,
Mine
Kat, what was yours?
Lilo and Stitch, actually, because
okay.
The reason I picked it, and again, is it the best book in the world? No, but it was the only one that I think did the job right for what it was trying to do. I was like, this is a perfect version of this type of book, so that's why I gave it as number one. And it's fun. It was fun enough.
That's funny because Brant matched 2 with me and 2 with you, Kat.
Yeah,
that was funny.
True.
That's hilarious.
That's why I also knew we did not have the same number one. I was just like, I don't think so.
Yeah,
all right,
I knew because you don't read Cover Commander, so yeah.
That too.
All right, so now we're gonna switch it over to some news pieces here.
Yes, but before we do that,
we're gonna do the
shout out.
Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll screen share it as Brant talks about it. So this is Caleb who did a sponsor. So I'm gonna pass the baton.
Yeah, Caleb Palmquist, a prolific creator on Kickstarter, especially does a lot of different genres and stuff. A lot of cool books, but this one is about dragons in the Wild West, basically. Dragons instead of horses. This is called Dragon Grit. It is a fantasy Western comic book that takes place in an alternate version of the Wild West where people ride dragons, like I just said, instead of horses. It's inspired by, those classic Westerns like Tombstone and True Grit, but with a fantasy twist. And ever since she cut ties with her old gang, Vera and her trusty fire dragon Blaze have been making deliveries to remote locations out west along star routes. So you get a little Firefly kind of action there. The world is changing, however, and as railroads make their way across the continent, the need for dragon mail carriers is diminishing. Looking for new ways to make a buck, Vera agrees to help a young man named Robin escort his dying mist dragon Chanterelle on one final voyage across untamed wilderness to an ancient dragon graveyard. But unable to fly due to Chanterelle's old age and bum wing, the party must make their way on foot, all while pursued by a dangerous outlaw named Jack and his dragon Ruin. The Kickstarter for Dragon Grit is live now. Visit dragongrit.com to pledge. So yeah, go check this one out on Kickstarter, or you can just search for Dragon Grit on Kickstarter. Looks like they're doing very well. 10 days to go. So go check it out. It's beautiful art as well.
Looks like got 481 backers on there, so that's
impressive.
Pretty cool. I mean, would you guys ride a dragon? Would you do that?
If it's an ice dragon, maybe.
I would.
I don't like heights though, so I don't know if that would work out.
What if there's like no cars in the world, right? And the only thing you could do is fly on a dragon.
It's the only way you could do it.
Do you go to like a used dragon lot and just be like, hey, I'm going to pay you $50. I want the red guy. I think it'd be like back, getting a horse from you got a bargain for your horse or, barter for your horse and get that, save up for it and go get one from the stables and I don't know, hatch an egg and raise it. I don't know how you do it.
Hatch
an egg. If you want one that lasts a long time, get it right from birth, wait for it to hatch. Yeah. And, it's cool. I love the concept of that comic. Though.
Oh, it's
really
brilliant
awesome.
concept. Yeah.
No, me too. Tevye asks if we would become a car. I don't think so. I think that's where I draw
Turbo
the
Team
line.
from the 80s. There you
Oh
go.
my god, I can't believe you remembered that, dude. I love that show when I was a kid.
Right?
It was so odd though. Like he gets
It
heated up.
was.
He's like, I'm getting hot. I'm gonna change into a car. And it was just so weird because his hands would turn into a freaking
Yeah, his
wheel.
tires. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was weird.
His
His
mouth would,
face would like spread out.
Man,
Yeah,
it's-
The
Probably
80s
no one
had
else
interesting
remembers that
concepts.
except me and you.
80s
Brad.
was psychedelic, man. I'm telling you.
Definitely is if people are turning into cars. I was thinking like more
Yeah.
Transformers, but
No,
yeah.
this was
No.
wild. This was.
I always
wild.
thought that Transformers, the people were like somehow involved, but they were like in. I always thought that people were in the Transformers, which I don't think they
No.
are. Yeah, but as a kid, I thought like, oh, they're like driving the Transformers.
They drive them or they ride in them.
but not
right?
as like the being though, like as the
No.
car, right?
No,
Yeah.
right.
I think they made a couple that went inside. Was it like the
Mhm.
Headmasters
Yeah, like-
or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. Like there was a little mini robot that went inside the bigger
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
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 Okay. So there, I was kind of right then. Maybe it wasn't a fever dream. I also have a Kickstarter, so I'll mention that, and we'll go to the news after. So Slice of Life, it's ending this Thursday. It's about an anime character comes to life, falls in love with a high school cheerleader. It's based on our webtoon. So you get the whole first season, get to see their relationship. And what I really like about it, it's about organic relationships, friendships, romances, school life. So go check it out. It's our pride and joy. And I'll put a link for that in the comments. But then let's get into the news. There's a lot. So we're obviously going to talk about the Gail Simone news. We're going to probably, let's talk about it now because it's the middle of the show. So we'll get there and then we'll talk about the other news after that. So we have a couple of creators that joined the X-Men team, Gail Simone being one of the bigger announcements that we kind of knew was going to happen anyways. But we got Gail Simone and David Marquez on the Uncanny X-Men. Then you have Jed MacKay and Ryan Stegman on X-Men, and Eve Ewing and Carmen Canero on Exceptional X-Men. Obviously, I'm most excited for Exceptional X-Men because you have Kitty Pryde, and I think Emma as well in that book, and like a couple of like new characters, which looks a lot of fun. And then obviously, I want to see what Gail Simone does. It's the more classic team, honestly, more of like the show, the cartoon, which was interesting to see. So I think this is a good lineup. I hope it's a good series, but I think it has a lot to offer so far. It looks very classic X-Men, and honestly, I'm impressed with all the creative teams.
The Gail Simone one looks like it's a more compact team, right? I think it would have Wolverine, Nightcrawler. I'm trying to remember who else was on there. I don't remember. Do you have the
Gambit? I want to say.
Rogue. Rogue was in there.
Rogue. Let me see if I
think there was one more.
Got the image.
Did you get it?
Yeah, I got it.
All right, cool.
Let me find it.
Couchin Slouchin says, I'm actually really excited about the upcoming X-Men titles. My wallet's going to be mad. We'll also talk about the other 9 titles coming out too. But,
so Nightcrawler. Oh, is it Jubilee?
Jubilee. See,
Yeah,
again,
Jubilee.
it's very X-Men 97.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That the artist. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
5 characters on there.
Yeah, the artist on Exceptional most recently did Amazing Spider-Man. I noticed the name pop up.
Okay.
Yes.
45
you're right.
and 46. Yeah.
Which I've liked all the art for Spider-Man except John Romita Jr. So I think that should be pretty solid. I'm pretty impressed by it. I hope they obviously deliver new things too. I think, but I trust Gail. I think this is a really cool return for her. I'm excited. I hope to enjoy it.
The X-Men book, I mean, that has a lot of characters in it, right? That's got like 8 characters in there. So that's going to be tough. I'm not sure what is going to happen with like Juggernaut in there. That's going to be a little bit different, right?
Well, Professor
Magneto's
X not involved, so
No.
that would be interesting if he was. But I don't even know what he's up to. This is like with everything going on with X-Men.
Yeah, I think the Emma Frost book, I like the character. I don't know those newer characters that well, so I don't know how well that's going to go. But it does give me,
yeah, I think they're brand new.
Yeah, it does give me Generation X vibes though, so it could be a fun concept. So.
I think if you just have Kitty and Emma together, that's all you usually need. But we'll see how that works out.
They are good together, yeah.
Let's go to the other X-Men titles coming out. There's 9 others. So the other titles are going to be Phoenix, X-Factor, Storm, NYX, which I definitely want to talk about, X-Force, and Wolverine. So there's some obvious ones. You know, Storm sometimes has an ongoing, so that's interesting enough. Phoenix has been having ongoings, at least with Jean Grey, and then Wolverine, of course. I think X-Factor and X-Force are very obvious. NYX, so I don't even know if you guys ever read it, but it was Laura's like really first series. And
yeah, that was her first appearance and
it was like these homeless people, and she like joined up with them. And I love that book. I think it's such a great book, but it's such a random book. Like, I mean, how many people know about it? So I think that's interesting.
Yeah, there were a lot of random books in that era, but I definitely remember because I remember the covers, the blonde girl with the pacifier.
Which is such an interesting look.
Yeah, it was.
Why NYX sucked? Yeah. NYX did not suck.
No,
I think it was a great book.
I mean, it's how we got Laura. That's X-23 was birthed out of that. So. I have fond memories of that. I don't know if I ever finished it, but I definitely remember reading it.
It wasn't that long. It had to be like 10, 15 issues. I read it after it was released. I remember like on the Unlimited app. I read it on.
I'm not super excited about like Phoenix or Storm. I think the other ones I kind of am, because I'm always into X-Force just to see at least how it starts off. X-Factor, obviously, because those are team books. Like, that's just how I know X-Men. I just feel like when you have individual X characters in their own books, it doesn't work really well all the time, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm the complete opposite. I like when they do solo books, because then it's like you actually get something from the character. I don't know if Storm and Phoenix are the ones that excite me, but I like that more than team stuff. I already have 5,000 X-Men teams. I don't need more. I think when you focus on the characters, it's just more interesting to me.
I'm sorry, Brent.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, we've had Storm books in the past, and they're just not good. And then Phoenix, what else do you need to tell when it comes to Jean Grey that we really don't already know? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, her stories have been so explored that it's like, oh, well, she's not in any of these team books, so we're going to give her an individual story here.
I like solo books, but with X books, though, anytime there's been a solo X book, unless it's Wolverine, they haven't quite been able to capture the character well enough, or they don't have enough issues to flesh it out. It's just they never grab me for whatever reason. I can't think of one example.
I think Uncanny Spider-Man is a good example of a book that I think they did a really good job at it.
Fair point. I forgot about that one, but yeah.
Laura's Wolverine book, I think, was great. I think there's definitely some good look. There's some that aren't.
Yeah, that was more her and Gabby together, so I wasn't really thinking about that one as a solo book. But yeah, you've named a couple that I definitely have to admit that is true. But by and large, like Iceman books,
speaking of like Storm the main X-Men, right? I think that's what you're looking at.
Like anytime they've done those kind of characters in a solo book, it just hasn't been great.
And I agree with Jean. I think Jean's a great example of a character they tried so many times, and she never is that interesting as a solo character. And Storm, I think Storm has her fan base, so I think it makes sense to me that they would do a character like that. Obviously, I don't know why they don't go the route of like a Kitty and Emma. Like, I think they would have really interesting solo books, but I mean, they just put them together, which is usually fine.
Yeah.
All right, let's move. What are you gonna say, Brett?
I was just going to say, I love Storm, and I would love to have a great Storm book. I just haven't seen one yet. That's all.
The last one was rough.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I have not heard. praise for a Storm book, which is why I tend not to pick them up. But I hope they do at some point. Okay, sorry, I was reading a comment. All right, let's go into media, and then we'll go back to the comic news. Marvel 1943 video game. This is the same creatives that did the Avengers game, I think, that I know not a lot of people loved. So you marked this down, Brant, I think.
Yeah, I haven't played the Avengers game, but I watched the trailer and it looked pretty cool. And seeing like I think it's Black Panther's grandfather that, kind of interacts with Captain America back in the 40s during all that. So I thought that was an interesting story to tell. And the cinematics of the trailer looked pretty cool. So I would assume the gameplay would be cool too, but I don't know that much about it. I just thought it looked pretty cool and the concept was kind of neat. So
the other news piece is that Teen Titans is having a live action movie in the works, which I think makes sense. They're trying to build this universe. So that one makes sense. It already has a mainstream audience because of the cartoon.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like the evolution of the Titans. It's like, hey, when I was little, I used to watch Teen Titans Go, and now it's like, oh, hey, let's make a Teen Titans live action movie. Like, I think that's a good idea. I think I just hope that it's done in a way that people can appreciate, right?
Yeah, it's like we've seen the very dark and edgy Titans show, so going a different direction with it. A little more, classic with it would be cool to see that progression. Yeah.
I mean, I would like to see live action. Like, it's not so much like the Titans Go, but more like what we watched in the cartoons back in the day when it was like on Cartoon Network.
Yeah.
When they were.
Yeah. Right. The first one. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so funny to see. Steve says the streaming show was decent. Then Tevye said it was horrible. I know that show in particular, a lot of people had very differing opinions, but I think by the end, but I would say by the end, most people who stuck with it seemed to like it. It wasn't my bag, but I didn't hate it. I thought it was a fine show.
I still have a few episodes left of it, but I like it. It's not like my favorite show, and I wouldn't be like, oh, you got to go watch Titans, but I enjoyed it for what it was.
Never got past the first episode.
I think I've watched the first 2 seasons, I want to say, and then I never went past that.
It's one of those shows I have to be in the mood for, and then I'll go like a long time without watching some of it, and then when I watch it, I watch a few at a time. Yeah, it's that kind of thing.
I hope you finish one day.
One day.
All right, let's move on to some comic news. I was the only one who marked this down, but DC Pride books coming out. I always think that DC does a pretty good job with their Pride books. They always have like a good array of characters that they have in there. So so Jamila, who was the editor on Hairology, one of my books, is writing a story for it. So I thought that was cool.
Nice.
But yeah, there's some cool, and O'Neill Jones, who also did art for us, is part of this as well. But they're always usually solid. I actually think DC tends to do a better job with the Pride books. I know a lot of people are upset with the Marvel Pride covers, and the thing with the Marvel book too is that so the Marvel Pride covers, they're doing like ally covers, and it's like more focusing on the allies, which is, I guess, an interesting move. Like I don't know why that's the choice they made. But the thing I want to focus on is that they have their Pride book as an X-Men book this year. It's just like the squeezing 2 things. Like, here's an X-Men wedding, but it's also a Pride book. I think DC at least gives room for the characters to kind of breathe and be like, hey, here's some short stories about these characters. So, yeah. All right, let's move on to the next thing. I was also seeing if there's any other comments. W says, I'm out with DC Pride because it's not interesting. What's not interesting about it? All right. Next is Al Ewing. Oh, actually, this is part of the DC Pride thing. So Al Ewing is actually writing a story for DC Pride too. So it's like, oh, is he moving to DC Comics? Like, again, who does Marvel have left if all these people are shifting to different things?
I don't know if he's actually like completely moving. I think he could be just doing a story for them, which I think which would be interesting. You want to see how he writes these characters in this book. I'm curious to see like how over the top is he going to go in this style of book. So
I think the only reason I'm like, oh, maybe this is a shift is because Kelly Thompson started with some short stories and then did shift to DC eventually, who's obviously writing Birds of Prey right now, and I don't think is writing any Marvel books. Oh, look, so I heard Ewing's writing one of the DC Ultimate books.
Ultimate books?
I guess maybe they're doing their own little version of Ultimate
there's
stuff.
this whole thing going on that DC's coming out with an Ultimate line also.
Wow.
That'd be a complete ripoff, right? But what else?
Yeah, I don't know if I need to see that. I think they should focus on like the Dark Knights of Steel stuff. They already have their
they already do.
Right.
So why not just focus on that? But sure.
They already had Earth 2. They could just do that again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they had other stuff
Earth
that
2 was good. I remember that.
Yeah.
That was really good.
There's pieces I really liked of Earth 2. I don't remember where it ended. That was the only thing I'm like, where?
I think it was Convergence. I think that's where it like ended around.
Oh, wow.
I know in the New 52 they had a very long series that I did like, and Tom Taylor wrote a good chunk of it actually. But then after that, I don't really know what they did with it. Again, maybe it was Convergence, but I don't know if there was another volume or not. Next up, I'm interested to talk about this. There's a new villain in Giant Size X-Men, Hulk. The only reason I'm interested in talking about this because now I've learned through obviously Spider-Gwen and us talking that these giant sizes are just reprints, and it's just like, well, how do you convince people to buy a reprint? Get a new villain, and I'm just like, why do these reprints in general? Like, who? I guess they're trying to get the new reader, but at the same time, then why not just like get your trades up to date? Because I know Marvel in particular is really bad at releasing their trades. Like, do that instead of these one shots that I don't really know who it's targeted for, because I think even new readers wouldn't know it's new reader friendly.
It's not, though. It's not new reader friendly because the reprints are so random.
Right.
That's what it is. It's like, do something that is going to make you like the Hulk. It's just so weird.
And the villain that they chose to showcase in this is just an odd choice too, because it's what is it, Patchwork Man? Is that it? And I'm like, this just looks like DC's Ragman. It's the same. It's just like he's got like this, sewed together outfit. It's like, okay.
Or not, why not just make a giant size comic book and call it Giant Size Hulk like they did back in the day? Why put a reprint in there? Like,
they won't spend the money. It's like, if to make a giant size book, it's so much money, but then at the same time, why have it at all then? Like, I remember when giant size meant, look at this big story. We can't even fit it in our book that we need to put it here.
I mean, that was like the debut of the replacement X-Men that became synonymous with X-Men, right? Giant size X-Men, Wolverine, Colossus, Nightcrawler, all that. That's what it should be. It should be something big.
Yeah.
And I think that's been the shame of some, especially Marvel, because we talked about the Web of Spider-Man. It's been a shame of some of these books where it's just like almost promises you because of expectations of, look, this is going to be big. You have to pick this up because there's going to be some like bombshells. And I don't remember last time there's been a bombshell. And when there is, they usually spoil it. Like we'll talk about the Green Goblin thing, but it's just like they spoil it to a point where they don't tell you who the person is. So you're so excited and you're like, okay, I want to find out who the person is, and then drags it out where it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, like Kindred.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, let's go to, I only marked this down, but Avatar: The Last Airbender are getting comics on WEBTOON. So I think this is a really good idea. Okay, we're talking about reprints. This is really cool because it's a reprint of the book for free for people who do not read direct market books. And I'm like, this is brilliant. This is a great way to get people into comics, to get people into Avatar, and utilize your old resources.
Yeah,
So,
no, I agree
I thought
with
it was
that.
cool.
Yeah, plus the timing is like perfect.
Oh yeah, because so many people are, watching that show, either remembering the old show and being like, oh, I wonder what happened after, or just getting into Avatar for the first time. So yeah, it's very good for that one. I'm I'm surprised you guys didn't mark this down. So Gwen Stacy's joining Ultimate Spider-Man, but what I thought was really interesting about this is that she's married to Harry, which just makes her Liz Allen.
Yeah.
And
I meant
like,
to mark it
it's
down
interesting.
actually. Yeah.
I might have marked over it. There was some of the links weren't like opening for me
Really?
when
That's
I was
weird.
going.
Yeah, the Betsy one, I replaced the link because there was no link on that one.
Oh, okay.
That's weird.
So, but hey, it's Gwen Stacy. You knew she was going to eventually show up, right? That's cool.
I didn't know so soon, though. I didn't think like issue 4.
Yeah. I do like that, it wasn't that. I mean, obviously it couldn't have been because he wasn't Spider-Man back then, but that she didn't have that fateful, end to her story. But interesting where she ended up. Yeah. But you're right. It does just make her Liz Allen, but we'll see how that plays out.
Even the haircut is Liz Allen.
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, let's see. Obviously, I'm not dogging that. I love Liz, but they are two different characters. I hope they do. Something
there's a different artist on that issue.
Interesting.
Is there?
Yeah.
I hope they make it a good twist.
I know Chiquetto's coming back, but I think it's just that one issue that he's not on.
Richard said, I'm going to be upset if she turns out to be the Green Goblin Ultimate. I mean, I don't think they are because of the whole Spider-Man 2099 thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't be upset though. I don't know who I want it to be, but I want it to be someone interesting that's not Harry and not
I think
Norman.
it's Harry. Because on the reprint of issue 2 of Ultimate Spider-Man, the sketch variant, it shows Harry in the Goblin suit.
Oh, there you go.
Like,
I just don't know how interesting that is. I mean, we've seen it a billion trillion times.
Right.
So
So
many times, yeah. Nothing.
Not too interested. But maybe he'll be a good character. I actually don't give a shit about a twist if it's a good story.
And it's been good so far, so
yeah.
Yeah, it's been solid. So, and even I saw a little bit of a preview of tomorrow's, and I was like, "Oh, that looks fun." It was like his daughter testing out costumes with him. I was like, "Oh yeah, that's awesome. That's cool."
I love that. That's so cool.
It does look like it's already been revealed to be Harry. So there you go. All right, let's go into Betsy and Rachel Summers. They're getting their own series, which I guess am so out of the loop for X-Men. I didn't know they were together.
I didn't either. That's why I marked this. I was like, what? When did that happen?
I do slightly remember this, actually. That
do you
they
really?
Were together. Yes. But I totally forgot. So when I saw this, I'm like, oh, I remember this. This is barely,
I mean, cool, I guess. Like, I'll read it, but
yeah. I just had no idea. That's all.
Me either. I thought it was literally something I missed. I was just like, maybe like.
Hopefully they'll recap it on like how it worked. I'm trying to remember what book it was or whatever it is, but
must be a book.
I mean, again, it's like, hey, let's come out with like more X-Men titles already. I mean, we already have like 9 coming out from the new line, and here we go. So
at least it's something different, though. It's
I agree. It's something that I'm like, I want to. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I was just gonna say we don't see these two characters highlighted that often either. So.
Correct. Yeah,
let's
just hope it's written well, man. It's all that matters,
Ultimate Power said they've been together since Excalibur, which I don't think any of us read, so that's probably why. Right. Thank you. We appreciate that. Next up, this is such weird news. Nico is joining the Ultimate X-Men, who is obviously not known to be a mutant.
Right.
I love Nico, so I'm here for it. But
that's
I just
cool, though.
More Nico, yeah. But it's really interesting.
This shows though, like this book is going to be something more. It's going to be something different.
They have fan favorites because Armor is also another one that's very cult favorite, and adding Nico, which is a very cult favorite character, I actually think works in the benefit. Yeah,
like out of those characters, like you guys know that I'm not a huge Runaways guy, but out of those characters, like I like her the best. She was in the new Avengers Arena. She was in Avengers Arena, and that's where I actually really enjoyed her character.
And she was also, she was great in that book, and she was also in that women X-Men book. I can't
Yeah,
remember. Was it
A-Force?
A-Force? A-Force.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, she
With
was.
Kelly
Yeah.
Thompson, which was really
Yeah.
good. It's, I guess, a little forgettable because we all didn't remember too much. But I was just thinking
Right.
that. I was like, oh yeah, she was an A-Force, and that was solid. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, Nico's a really cool character to have here.
I love Nico. She's like my favorite Runaways character. Yeah, she's cool. That makes me want to continue with the book because I was like really on the fence with that book. And even if she's not like a part of the X-Men, because I don't know whether she's going to end up being a mutant in the Ultimate Universe or not. But if she's there, I'm definitely going to at least check that out. So.
And they can make her a mutant. It's fine. Like
could,
there's so many characters in the Ultimate Universe that were mutants that weren't mutants in the real universe.
Why
Again,
not?
Liz Allen.
I'm sure it's very
example.
easy. It's very easy to make her a mutant.
No.
Yeah.
Then I wouldn't care. I'd be like, cool, that's the Ultimate Universe. Do your thing.
Right.
This is the last news piece. We have a new Green Goblin coming. That's, I guess, the new thing that they want to do over at Spider-Man. And I don't know. I don't know if I'm too excited.
When all else
about
fails,
it,
add a Green Goblin. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Norman, or is it?
No, they're saying it's a new goblin, and there's a new identity for this goblin.
Well, based off of what we did read in Web of Spider-Man, didn't Norman Osborn look pretty freaking evil when he was defeating that weird
but
goblin
this person
guy?
is born by the sins of Norman, so the sins are still. So kind of like the first of all, they already did this story because the Red Queen Goblin did that already.
Yeah.
So the sins were in Craven's staff thing.
Mm-hmm.
So do they escape and then become this other thing?
Yeah, because again, they did that in the other run where I forget her name. I think her name's Queen Goblin, but that's exactly what she did.
Right.
That's how she was created.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'm not a
Kafka.
Dr. Kafka. Yeah. She was the shrink.
Yeah.
I will read it. I'm interested that there's some sort of story because it was really weird that Gang War ended and there was literally no thread. It really could have just ended. You're like, well, where is this series going? So at least it's okay, we have to go somewhere and it's at least going here.
The only thing you got literally from that book was Kingpin's law was no more. That is it.
Which didn't really affect that many books. So
no.
Do we know if it's a guy or girl?
No, it's just there's a
mystery.
blurred image.
Yeah.
We do not know, but we will find out an issue soon. We're gonna find out issue 51, which
I thought it was 50. I could have been wrong. I thought
51 and 52. I'm guessing the cliffhanger is in 50 will probably lead us to this, but 51 and 52 will be where it's all happening. Which is in June. It's Paul.
That's a way to kill him, and then Spider-Man will actually kill him. He'll have a reason to do it and be like, "That's for messing up my relationship with Mary Jane. You die, and that's it. It's over. Paul's done."
Even that would be so uninteresting to me. Don't even give more spotlight to Paul. Just forget about him, and that's it. I don't even think I would have satisfaction because I'm like, oh, you wasted more screen time for this character that no one really likes.
Loser, man.
I don't even think Paul likes himself. If he was a real person, he'd be like, you know what? I get it.
It's like, what a nerd I am. I just sit in front of a computer all day and I just tell Mary Jane where to go. I wish I was the superhero.
He really does. Ultimate Power says, I'll bet they'll make MJ the new Goblin. I don't think so. She's gonna be Jackpot and the new Goblin, and that's I can see Chasm, the whole Ben Reilly stuff. Maybe Kane because they're referencing them right now.
Yeah. Maybe.
I don't want anyone to be the new Green Goblin. I could care less. I don't want it. Just give Norman the Green Goblin suit, or that's it. I just don't. It's just so overused.
Yeah. I don't have a clue who it could be.
We'll find out soon, guys. We'll find out in a couple months.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Right? At least it's Ed McGuinness art. That's something different.
Yeah, that's a plus. That's a good plus.
We gotta wait that long for a new story arc. Because what's happening in between all that?
Yeah, what happened in the last issue? Oh yeah, we had Mary Jane's aunt.
Oh, that was actually a decent issue.
Yeah,
I like
yeah.
that portion. Yeah.
It's the Sinister Six coming back, basically.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
last
yeah.
issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we
I
got that.
actually did like that. Oh, and maybe that was the artist from X-Men. Was that
Yes,
last issue?
it was. Yeah.
Yeah. The
And
art was
Norman
decent.
Osborn told Peter, like, oh, you can come work here anytime you want. You don't have to leave.
Yeah.
You know, that was actually a pretty good morning. That issue was actually decent, you know?
Yeah.
It was in my top 5.
Was it?
Yeah. Because I was
Well,
like, oh yeah, I enjoyed it enough, you know.
You're like, this is way better than what we got.
Yeah.
Which
And
I
like the Ant stuff. I thought that was really interesting.
I feel like Zeb Wells just does better when his books are not connected to any event. And I feel like it's like, oh, I have a story to tell, and it's going to be a couple issues, and then anytime he has an event, it just sucks. You know?
Yeah.
I agree, but I'm sure that's not of his control. I'm sure there's quotas you got to make in that way. Cool. Well, that's all the news. So I think we're gonna move on to the most anticipated.
Yeah, which our most anticipated is very similar this week. Just a couple of differences, and I kind of went back and forth between a book you had, Kat, and a book you had, Mike, and I just set up on Mike's. So mine and Mike's list are identical. So we'll talk about the one book that we don't have, which is Green Arrow, which is in yours, Kat. So
the reason I picked this is that I think it's obvious why I picked it. It's every Green Arrow character I love. Right. You got Mia back, you got Arrowette back, you got Green Arrow's sister. Yeah, it just looks like it's going to be a very Cat book, and I'm very excited to read it.
Cool, man.
Yeah,
and
I'm excited for it too.
Yeah, he's under Amanda Waller's thumb there, and he's got to go after the mask from the Heroes in Crisis thing. So that's the confession thing. So that's cool, man. That is cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I just love the whole Arrow family together. So that's going to be fun. And then Mike and I have Duke issue number 4. This is it the penultimate issue of the?
I think so. I think, I think we're at they end at 5, but so this is the issue coming after Major Blood's shot in the head, and Baroness saying, you know, I could take you out right here, and you're worth a lot of money, but we know she doesn't kill him. So,
of course,
but I'm looking forward to it. I think this is going to be really awesome.
Yeah. I can't wait for it. And then we all have Feral issue number 1, which is
I can't wait.
Next one from Fleeks. Yeah, this is if anybody read Stray Dogs, this is not connected to that, but it's in the same vein, I guess.
Yeah.
I wasn't on the ride for Stray Dogs, so I'm excited to read this one to start to actually, like, from issue 1 read this. So.
Yeah.
Oh, it's good.
Even though I don't like cats as much as I like dogs.
I don't either, but the premise of this sounds pretty neat. Like, it's just like a rabies outbreak out in there.
It's basically a zombie story, right? It kind of very similar. Yeah.
But for cats. And I think that's great. I think that's so cool. But the way he writes the animals, I think, is what makes it so good. There's been other books where they've had dogs and cats and things like that, and you want to see like that internal monologue from them, and it's just not the same, you know. I always feel like, oh, is this going to be as good as Stray Dogs, and it just hasn't, you know. So I'm excited that this is coming out.
Yeah, and if you like variant covers, just like Stray Dogs, this does like a bunch of homages to like horror movies and different stuff like that. So, and then we all had Ultimate Spider-Man number 3 as our number 1. So,
if anything was going to beat Green Arrow this week, it was going to be Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yeah. There was no question that was number 1. Yeah.
So, Ultimate Spider-Man's at the book where it's just like, it's the way that book is what Amazing Spider-Man should be. It's like that should be the book where you're most excited to read in that particular week, and you just can't wait for that adventure for Spider-Man to go on, right? And that's what the main Amazing Spider-Man title is missing. But hey,
it makes you excited. It makes you excited to go to the store. That's
Yeah.
I hate weeks when you're just like, oh, there's nothing out. And honestly, this week was kind of an example of that, where it's just like there's nothing out that's like that exciting. You're just like, yeah, I'm gonna pick up my books and I hope there's like a diamond in the rough. But this is a week where it's like, wow, it was actually hard to make my top 3 because I was like, there's a lot of books I'm looking forward to.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like so when Transformers comes out, I'm like, yes. Ultimate Spider-Man, I'm like, yes. And you got, Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, I'm like, I'm all over that. And, there's those books, those 1 or 2 like really next level books you're so excited to read each week,
Yeah.
So hopefully Farrell will be that other book too.
I hope so.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to have even more indies on the plate because Kill Your Darlings is leaving soon. So I'm like, I want to have an indie where I'm like really excited to read that book.
That's a shame about the indies, right? Because most of the time they have a definite ending, and it's like when they go, it's like, oh man, that sucks.
And then when they don't, there's like books like Local Man, I feel like is an example where it's like, oh man, maybe this is spinning its wheels too much, so it's like there is that fine balance.
Long to get to the next issue,
But then there's books like Phantom Road that always surprises me. Where I'm like, this is a very long running book that really should have. Nothing happens, but everything happens. It's such a weird book that I love because it's like it's so somber and so like soft and quick, but it's like, oh wow, that did something for me, and I don't know why. And it's just such a unique book. But it's up to issue 10, and I'm not tired of it, and I still don't even know where it's going. So that's a good example of one where it doesn't spin its wheels, but it's continuing.
But it's so not an overly complex book either.
No,
it's very minimal dialogue, and yet it tells such a good story visually. And it's just like, but it always keeps you thinking, and you always can't wait for that next issue.
I agree. Totally agree.
So I guess with that being said, I guess we're all done for the night, huh, guys?
That's it.
All right. So, guys, thank you so much for watching and having all the awesome comments tonight. We appreciate it. And hopefully we will see you guys back here next week. Until then, if you like this video, before you leave on your way out, give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to hit the bell for notifications on Comic Book Weekly and Comic Book Corner 2.0. And, of course, guys, subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to Comic Book Corner 2.0. Subscribe to Comic Uno. Subscribe to Only Good Comics. And, of course, follow us on all the other social media stuff. And, guys, have a great new comic book day, and we'll see you all next week. Good night, everybody.